Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October 2nd meeting of the Stockbridge Assessors. Mike?
Good morning. Last meeting minutes, just about everything on this list we covered last time, and we're going to discuss again. Number 2, board to review and sign motor vehicle abatement applications that Tammy has prepared. Number 3, board to sign, there's a 2023, new 2023 motor vehicle commitment dated today, so that has to get signed. Number 4, there's a new filing date the DOR has announced for the chapter land forms. It's no longer October 1st, it's December 1st. I know the local assessors, our Berkshire County assessors have been looking at this for a while to try to get it passed. I mean, not like we could do much. I mean, it's the state's decision, but it does help people and gives them a little bit more time. And we weren't sure why it wasn't extended to the end of the year anyway, because especially the farmers, more time to get those back for the 61As. So this year, we will hold off on sending out any letters to the ones that we haven't received, because today is the date we actually put on the letter, because this just came through last week and there's still a whole bunch of them that are still out there. So as of now, the filing date is December 1st, and we will include that next year when we send out the forms and the cover letter going forward December 1st now, which is great. I think it's a good thing. Number 5, we have the annual fall meeting for the Berkshire County Assessors Association coming up. It's going to be Wednesday, October 25th at 8:30 at the Granite Country Club. And the topics will be, there will be John Valente from Tyler Technologies. That's a appraisal system. He's going to just basically discuss how to change, like if you're in a reval or you're doing your interim adjustments, how, basically newbie assessors can learn how to do changes to their base rates, to their land schedules, to their condition factors and things like depreciation schedules. It should be a good presentation. And then also talk about appellate tax board preparation. And then Kenneth Woodland from the DOR is going to be there. Initially, we were going to try to get Kathleen Caleri, who's actually retired, but she still does consultation work for the DOR, to do 41A tax deferrals. He will be doing 41A tax deferrals and cover any recent changes, both with the appellate tax board and with the Divisional Local Services Bureau of Local Assessment as to what to expect going forward. That should be a good presentation. Lunch, and then we'll be electing officers. So if anybody knows of anybody, especially you, Brandy, if there's anyone that wants to be on the e-board, even if you want to consider being on the e-board, we're always looking for people. And I think there might be 2 that are up this year. I'm going to stay on the board. I'm not going to take any additional steps upward for president or treasurer or vice president, but e-board, we're always looking for people if they want to be a part of it. And so that's that. If you guys want to go, I have to get this back by Thursday, October 19th. Okay, number 6. So as of Friday afternoon, I worked with Joe Barberi the whole day to get the LA3, LA4, and LA13 approved, and it's all done. Right. So as of today, the only thing we have left to do is the presentation for the tax classification. And in order to have that done, we really need to have an idea of what the tax rate's going to be. Seeing that next week is a holiday, I think I talked to Mike about this, that we're going to try to schedule the tax classification hearing for the 12th, the selectmen's meeting on the 12th. I think we're going to be okay with that. If not, we're going to have to wait until the end of the month, and we really don't want to do that because there's a special town meeting coming up. we have everything ready to go. We've filled in almost every form on the gateway that has to do with the tax rate. The only thing that was remaining was the estimated receipts on page 3 of the recap. Cheryl has actually put in the actuals. Mike was gonna put in the estimated, and I'm pretty sure he was working on that on Friday. I can't move forward without, I'm not gonna, even if I know what the tax rate is, that's not gonna be announced until we actually have it set, but we'll have an indication of what it's gonna be at the tax classification hearing. I'm still going to, in the meantime, get the tax file ready to send out, because that's not going to change, and Erica can start doing what she has to do. But everything, if you were to go on Gateway right now, I haven't been in since, because it was right up to the last minute on Friday. I haven't been in to see how many of the, Brandy, when you go in and it has all those notices, you've got to do this first, you have to do this first. Well, with having the LA 3, 4, and 13 done, a lot of those should have gone away.
Yeah.
So it's all going to be recap and tax rate stuff now. Everything is filled in, so we're really in a good spot right now to have our tax rate set possibly by the end of next week. I mean, we're only giving ourselves one day, and I don't even know if Jim Podolak is gonna be there next Friday. So most likely it'll be the following week, that we get our tax rate set, which is great. And I would love to get a bill out by November 1st, but there's still a lot of work that Erica and the rest of us have to work on to get that done, but we're still in a good spot right now. So that really takes care of, and nothing changed on the LA4 from what we submitted. Nothing changed on the amount of growth that we submitted. So it's still going to be the 17 million in value, 144,000 in new taxes that we're picking up. There was a little discussion about that with DOR, no huge problems after we talked about it.
So did you have that discussion remotely, or was he in the building with you going over?
Oh, no, they do everything over the phone.
Okay.
Yep, yeah, they haven't been out here, and right, Brandy, they don't come out. Not anymore, unless you're in a reval, we'll see the DOR once to pick up the record cards for the data quality study, but everything's done remotely through the gateway, through cell phones at this point, which is fine with me. And that brings us to something that we do have to nail down, which is number 8. We can't proceed with the tax rate until we discuss the overlay. And we really did work a lot on that last week, because Erica and Cheryl were determined to match numbers with me for all of the years going back to 2014. So I will say Erica did a ton of work to go in and make sure that our numbers matched, because we have to submit the OL1 form, which does the 5-year average on our on what was spent through the overlay. And we also have to put down what remains in the overlay. And the main thing to remember also is the overlay account now is one account. Even though we're keeping track of it separately, and we're going to continue to keep track of it separately, which I think all assessors and boards should do, is something that even when you do an overlay release, we've done releases before, I would never really go through and deduct the release off of that year, but Erica and Cheryl thought that's a good thing to do. So now I have spreadsheets that go back to 2014 all the way up to fiscal 23, where every single amount, total overlay remaining, matches what they have on record. So at least going into fiscal year 24, we now know that the amount that we're putting in, it will match up with whatever is submitted on the accounting side and on the treasurer's collector side. That being said, everything added up with the releases that were done from 2014 through fiscal year 23, we have $168,000 remaining in the overlay. Now, that might trigger a response that maybe we shouldn't raise anything on the overlay. I'm pretty sure we're going to be required to raise something. I don't know what you do in your town, Brandy, but we've never tested it where we put a 0 for the amount to be raised. That will set off one of those nuclear warnings up at the top that our 5-year average is going to be thrown off because we're putting zero in. So,
Plus then it upsets next year too, then would be such a difference if you needed.
right, because that zero now becomes your next year and your 5-year average. So I would recommend, because last year, when everything was said and done, we ended up we had initially voted like 55,000, but we ended up using with the rounding and the way that the recap, it came in at like 54,593. So I would suggest, so it doesn't set up a red flag at the DOR, even though we have 168,000 left, is to use the amount that we used last year. Like at least 50,000 and maybe 55,000.
What did we have prior to, once we did the funding? How much did we have in the account? Did we have 220? Did we have 250?
Oh, you mean once we did the abatements last year?
Well, before we did the abatement, so when we approved our overlay amount for last year?
Well, that's the issue. The amount this is the first time that we've reconciled through the general fund with the overlay. That number was wrong that was submitted last year with the DOR. That in itself might cause an issue on the accounting side. We reported 68,000 available last year. We had 100,000 more than that we really could have reported. Once we put in, I mean, that's Cheryl's part of the overlay. When she puts in what we've reconciled at 168, before you start putting in your 5-year average and how much you think you're gonna need, I haven't seen the error because I haven't plugged that number in yet. We just finished this last Thursday. And that may trigger something like, well, last year you reported 68. How did you all of a sudden get $100,000 extra? That's up to the accountant to explain to them. Our part of it is how much do we think we're going to need going forward for fiscal 24, knowing that we have 5 pending appellate tax board cases, of which one is Friday and one is at the end of the month. And then you have the 3 Camp Mackinac ones, which will end up coming through, which we do an income approach on. So that would be an automatic. But even that all added up together is probably going to come to maybe 30 or 40,000. So we're still going to have over $100,000 left in the overlay. But again, that number that runs to the recap for what we're raising this year, I don't know of any communities that have tried putting zero or will put zero going forward.
So if we can't put zero, we can always put a number such as, say, 54.
Yes.
And we can give back 54.
Absolutely. Once that's certified and we have our tax rate and we have satisfied all the abatements, exemptions, and senior work off, whatever is left there, because now, again, you could actually still go back to the old accounts. I mean, if you go back to, for example, like fiscal 15, there's nothing because there was a release for 15. 16, we have $219 left in there. All these little amounts, it's the bigger amounts that are at the end of the fiscal year. We have 9,200 left in 17. So 40,000 is left in 18.
But again,
that's a big amount.
So we're continuing to record them and reconcile them on a yearly basis, even though it's not required?
Yeah, it's easier. It's easier because we're showing every single abatement and exemption and senior work off amount that was done. And that's what made it possible for Cheryl and Erica to go through and reconcile every single year. They still list it on their general fund separately, but the total amount is what the state is basically saying. If you have a deficit in 1 year or a zero account or a zero amount in 1 year, but you know that going forward, you've got 50,000 that you're going to have to give out in appellate tax board decisions, the state doesn't care anymore where that comes from, but we still want to document what fiscal year that related to. It just makes sense on the accounting side. For us, we don't care as long as if there is an abatement, we want to make sure that there's money for it no matter what, which there will be because it's one account. But when the appellate tax board makes a decision, their decisions could be 3 years down the road. So you could have a fiscal, the ones I'm dealing with right now, thank God, are fiscal 23. But there's some communities that are still dealing with years accounts that haven't even been given a hearing date yet. So it might still be easier for them just to say, okay, we've got this much, we'll give it back. But on the accounting side, I would not be able to reconcile with them if I just had one big, I probably could lump it
Do
into
that
one.
form? Did you create that form?
I did. These are mine. So on Thursday, when we were finished with everything, I ran this as a PDF. I can send it to you guys, but this gives, and Erica went through all of mine and she says, oh, wait a minute, you forgot a write-off that we did, that you guys signed off on 3 years ago.
Does uncollectible come out?
They do. So, and again, uncollectibles can hit years down the road, but we've got to go through our old spreadsheets and make sure that those uncollectibles hit the right fiscal year. It's a great thing. So the 3 categories are abatements, exemptions, and senior work off. We haven't done a senior work off since COVID, but I know they're pushing to get that restarted again. So we'll keep track of everything here. And what we weren't keeping track of before was, like, I have a total down here, overlay released by the Board of Assessors. So the memos that you guys sign that go to the Finance Committee and to the Selectmen and to Cheryl, I've now put the date that you did it and the amount that came out. So it's just a good track record for the accountant to be able to do that. And going forward, again, we probably should look into see how many communities are using zero if they have a big amount in that overlay. But again, I would think we should turn that money over if you're not going to use it for anything.
So I mean, so if we used 54,000 last year, there's currently 168 in there. We have more than 3 years worth in there. So once we do another 54, we're gonna have over 4 years worth of.
Yeah, so what you're gonna wanna do or consider is after or even before next year's town meeting, I mean, remember, there have been times where the Board of Assessors has been asked to release money for certain things at the town meeting. And I'm not talking about articles that relate back to reval. It doesn't happen a lot, but it could happen. So the decision would have to be made whether you'd want to do a release before or after the town meeting, but you should do it next year.
Well, the thing is, yeah,
I think.
I don't think we should be the piggy bank for the town.
No.
Right, and
So-
that's completely, I'm just saying it's happened before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think what we should do is we should start following a procedure by saying that our overlay is always going to be what we used the previous year, but we're going to keep a multiple.
Yes.
2 times, 3 times.
And again,
So
we're
that
not-
every year we will bring
I
it down
agree.
to that multiple.
Yeah.
And then we're not hoarding taxpayer money.
Yep, and that way you're not getting into a situation where you have too much or too little. And we track, that OL1 form does track any potential liability. So at the very end of the OL1, I'm putting in, yes, I think we might have, this is what I do basically, is I put in the tax amount as if the town lost every case. And I put that total amount in there, so even though we don't lose, I mean, most of the time they'll split it down the middle.
Right.
At least we'll have that extra too that gets added on, and then you guys can decide next year, when everything is settled for our abatements and our exemptions and the senior work off, how much as a total you want to give back.
Because I think we've had as much as,
To over 200,000.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is we're gonna start with over 200,000.
Right.
But the thing is, I think we should like say, okay, you know what, we're always gonna get 1 times of whatever it was
Right.
last year. And then we're only gonna keep up to
I think so too.
2, you know, if it's.
Yep. And it's like the last thing going into the tax rate process is we meet, we talk about it,
like.
and that is like the
just
final
with,
thing.
Either a formula or a number, like I think we talked once about 100.
I think so, too.
The formula might be the way to go though, because if we go with.
Then it's fair.
Based
That's
on
always the
what
same.
happened the previous year, we'll
Yeah.
know if the abatements are going up and
Yep.
down.
Right.
I mean, so the thing.
And what I'll do is before that agenda comes up, I'll send you the spreadsheet as a PDF. You can look at it and have it the weekend before we meet,
I mean, we can release from the overlay at any time, right?
anytime.
I mean, so the
Yep.
thing is, if we said the number was 1 time, then we kept them up to 3 times, theoretically, we could release, we would need 108 plus the new
Yes,
54.
now releasing before the town meeting and before the fiscal year makes that money available to the general
I
fund.
would want to release it in like December going
Right.
into budget season.
That too.
And they know.
But that would be a decision, like, you know, how you want to do that. Again, once everything is settled see, that's another good thing to keep it separate by year, because when we do the memo, we can specifically nail down, okay, from 14 to 18, what are you gonna do with, you can't do anything with that anymore. Everything has been settled. So just list, like we've always been doing, here are the amounts, and let Erica and Cheryl post those. I'll update my worksheet going forward to the next fiscal year, and we'll know how much we'll have in there. I think it's a great process. I don't know how many other communities actually even spend this much time on overlay. They should, because it's a big deal. You should not have, overlay is not a slush fund, you know? I mean, it's used for a specific thing. Yes, we've used it for other things going forward. That's a decision that you guys make with the town administrator and the finance committee, if they needed money out of that overlay.
I don't think they shouldn't, they shouldn't be asking.
That's one thing.
We should just be releasing it on a regular basis.
And once it gets released, then they can do whatever they want with it. Well, not whatever, it's got to still go to town meeting.
Right.
So I think we should go ahead and take the 54. You said 54 was the number, or was it?
We went with 55 last year, but when you plug it in, if there's a rounding issue, it always adjusts the overlay. That's the one thing that the recap goes back to, and it's always off by a few $100s.
So if we're going to do 55 for this year, that's fine, but I think we should also get ready to release 60,000 back to the town.
Yep, you guys tell me, if you want to do it by the end of the year.
I think
we should.
I think Randy's suggestion was good. So
I do too.
why don't we put it on the agenda for our first meeting in December?
And if we do it first meeting in December, then we can sign it the second meeting in December?
Right.
Yeah.
We do it a little bit earlier I don't know,
Makes sense to me.
okay, yeah.
Well, it definitely should be after the tax bills and everything go out. I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely, and those will
Then we'll
hopefully
do-
be November
we'll do
1st.
The first week the first meeting in December, and then we can sign it
Okay.
and it'll be done by the end of it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's great. And again, I was a little bit shocked because I always rely on, I've always done my spreadsheet, so we know how much we've abated and, in that fiscal year. But, we've also gone through several accountants and all their procedures are different. And I rely on them to tell me what's remaining in these accounts in that OL1 form. And again, it still might trigger an issue with the DOR. But again, that issue, even though the OL1 is signed by us and the accountant, that is an accounting issue. How did you all of a sudden, I think it was a matter of we weren't told the right amounts to be released
Right.
before.
I mean, I
it
would
created more in there than we actually, that we thought we had less in there when there was actually more in there.
I think that would be something to present to one of your, one of our
Association meetings?
association meetings.
Absolutely. Because I won't mention any other communities, but I know there are some neighboring communities that hold on to that for dear life, and it's
no
just
reason
like,
for it.
there's no
Forgotten about.
reason for, you have to have a process in place.
That money is not doing anybody any
No.
good by sitting there.
No.
No, we have done more releases than I think most communities do.
Well, I think so. Yeah. We have a lot of
Absolutely.
money.
Yeah. I mean, if you look back on just we've been doing steady releases, large amounts going back to 14, even before then. So yeah, it's a big deal and it should be, that's a great topic. OL1 and how to do it. I would say especially if there's turnover in a community.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the assessors that are involved. When you're trying to reconcile this, we can run the best spreadsheets ever, but when you go to match it with your town, and none of the years matched. I mean, I think maybe one or two.
Yeah.
So we just spent all last week going through and making sure that my stuff matched theirs, which is great.
What would 60,000 do for the tax rate? We wouldn't probably even really notice it, would we? It'd be pennies, wouldn't it?
It's not a huge amount.
But at the same
But
time.
it's the purpose.
Yeah.
It's this.
I mean, we still don't know where the receipts are yet on it. That is the piece that if they are higher or lower at this point, where we're going to keep them to maintain the tax rate that we had last year. I really hope I know by the end of the day. I mean, getting the classification hearing together is not something that I can do in 2 minutes. I mean, it's
Why
going to
is-
take a few days.
Why is it, can't they schedule, because you were going to do it on the 12th, And why do you have to wait till the end of the month just because of a special town meeting?
To have the classification.
Yeah.
I don't know, he threw out dates and and he's like the best, no, actually, I was it was suggested, well, could we possibly make the 12th? And I was like, oh boy, that's pushing it. But Joe Barberi really grabbed our information. It's like, we're going to knock this out and just get it done.
So when that question was asked, that was before Joe Barberi cleaned up all the LA 3, 4, 13.
Yeah, I hadn't
So
even,
now you could.
I literally had submitted it and I thought, look, it's out of my hands now. The DOR has it and I can't push them to get, they usually, semi-annuals towns, which we are, usually take the top priority, but reval towns go before then. Especially if you're a reval town that's a semi-annual like we are last year, and we got our bills out like 2 weeks before Christmas. So I love the fact that he said that, but I was a little nervous thinking, I can't tell the DOR what to do. They're going to tell me what to do to get things done. And we just worked on, the sales were certified on Monday last week, and I called him on Friday and we worked on the new growth and the LA4. And I asked him, I said, is it okay to go ahead and schedule the classification? He says, absolutely. Whenever you don't have to advertise it in the paper anymore, but you do have to still follow your town's procedures for having a public hearing. So that's now, within there. I really just need the tax at this point. Everyone that has anything to do with the tax rate has to get that information to me as quick as possible.
When is the special town meeting?
Do you know when that is?
I think the 23rd, it's a Monday.
Okay.
So have you gone back to Michael and say that you can maybe do the 12th now?
Oh, I can absolutely do the 12th. Yeah, I want to have the packet ready for the selectmen by Friday so they can have it by the weekend, because it's a long weekend next week and there's not a lot. I really don't want to give that to them on Tuesday when the meeting is on a Wednesday. But if I have to and work on it, to get it to that point, there's still things that recap has to be done. And we've done our part. I mean, everything else is just waiting for the receipts is the only part we haven't plugged in yet. It may already be in there. I haven't looked.
And then there's still going to be the question about the dual tax rate, right? They'll always ask that.
That and what I get prepared is also you have to go into the classification hearing with the residential exemption, tax exemption ready to go too, with an idea of what that would be. So that's the hard part. I mean, most of the other stuff is done. It's just, here's the case scenario if you were to adopt the residential exemption or the small commercial exemption. That involves a whole bunch of, a lot of it you can do on the recap sheet in the LA 5 and 7 online, but there's still spreadsheets that I get ready for them. It's not a huge packet that they get, but it's very informative.
We'll meet before then, or we will?
No, because that's next Thursday, yeah.
So should we send a recommendation, like vote to send a recommendation on the dual tax rate and the residential exemption?
Sure.
Well, that's what the classification is for, though.
No. He wants to have a statement from the assessors.
Oh.
Like that we are in favor of it or we're not in favor of it. Endorse it,
We typically don't do that, but that's completely up to you guys.
I just think things have changed a little bit, that's all.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I shouldn't say that, but I just hope it doesn't happen.
well, no, I mean, I think it's fine for you or me or Brandy to voice what our beliefs are.
Yeah.
I think I think having a single rate we've always had a single rate. I think we should continue to have a single rate and.
But do you want me to say that at the beginning of the classification hearing? That's typically what I do, that the board.
I think.
Board recommends.
The board would recommend that the town stay with.
As a matter of fact, I mean, you could send it.
That is what I do.
Send it with a packet. Mm-hmm. Just put a memo to them and say, we think that it should remain a single tax rate and, whatever we.
So I'm fine.
And what about the other two categories as well?
Okay.
What about the other two categories as well? The residential exemption and the small commercial exemption? No. Okay. Yeah, I usually put that in there too.
Yeah. So I would say everything stays
Okay.
status quo.
Yes.
All right, good.
Residential, no small commercial.
Right.
Yep.
Single tax rate.
So, I mean, I don't think we need a formal vote on it, but I mean,
No.
we're in full agreement that all those three things should remain as they have been.
Absolutely. I know I don't.
And then that could
but I
be on the
agree.
top of the packet, and they know where our heads are
And
at.
I'll just put as of today's meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That sounds good. Last but not least, I mentioned it before, Friday, and I'm in the office by myself on Friday, but I'm gonna have to close at least in the morning because the appellate tax board hearing that I have is scheduled for 10 o'clock as a Zoom meeting. And that is, I haven't gotten the link yet, but I've sent all the jurisdictional information in. Should I mention who it's for or no?
That might be for the
Okay.
private meeting.
All right, then I'm not going to. There is another one scheduled for the 24th. And I don't have to get the jurisdictionals done for those until the week before. They're both informal hearings, so there really isn't any demands from the appellate tax board or from the taxpayer that we have to do. It's just whatever like I usually send in comps and things like that for, the appellate tax board to review, but I think it's gonna be pretty cut and dry.
So reason why it's informal, because there's not an attorney involved, or why do you?
No, that's determined by the taxpayer. If you want to have the minutes from the appellate tax board and you want to have, if they want to force us to do interrogatories, which are up to 22 questions, and they could be multi-part questions, it has to be filed through formal. Typically, commercial properties file formal. These did not, like, if Camp Mackinac files, it will probably be a formal filing. I still haven't received those yet. But these two that I have, which are for private citizens, they're informal. So, but it works the other way too, is like I can't get any more information from them. Although it's like a regular court case, whatever evidence you have to send it to both the appellate tax board and to the other person. And that person has to do the same thing for us. So it's basically just, here's the comps I'm using, and I'll just review the comps and I'll send the record cards in. It's very, very laid back and informal, just like they say. We can decide to rest on our laurels and not say anything. And the burden of proof, the burden of proof is always, the burden of proof is always on the property owner. They have to present a case against the Board of Assessors. But at the same time, if I choose to not say anything, that means I remain quiet through the entire thing. That is virtually impossible for me to do. So it will be me speaking on behalf of the town and the Board of Assessors. And again, it's typically friendly, and I haven't been to the appellate tax board in years, but I am very happy that they're doing it through Zoom instead of making us go out to Boston. That is just, I hope it's like that for all the cases, but I can't, that's up to
The
them.
only thing is it could create the environment for more frivolous claims if there's no investment in the process.
Yeah,
Sure. I mean, typically you only go to Boston if the value is over $1 million. That used to be I haven't heard anything different from that. They used to come out to Pittsfield and they used to come out to Northampton. COVID changed everything. So I don't know what their procedures are. They've been doing informal, formal may require a trip, but informals are a lot easier to do. And that's all I have today.
Anybody on? Nobody's on?
I have a couple.
Yeah.
Questions.
Yep.
So Michael, so I did get a question from a taxpayer about the cover letter or the questionnaire that gets sent out for all property that's been sold. And they were wondering what it was. And so we don't send a cover letter with that questionnaire. It's just sort of this question.
No, but it explains it up at the top, what it's for, and that we use it for it's not open to the public, and they're basically questionnaires that are used for the process of doing sales analysis. So we can basically consider if a property is an outlier, which means it doesn't make it into our study, or if we're using that to determine all the valuations in town. We don't send a self-addressed stamp envelope. We probably should, to get more of those back, but it's just a tool and it has helped. I mean, it's not the tool, the best tool, but it does help us if things were included in the sale that we're not aware of just by looking at the deed. So I would encourage that if people get one, and, you know, we've gotten calls before as to what this is for, and we'll just explain to them what it is.
Right, so I got a call about what this is for, so just make sure you review the form to make sure if you can describe it or.
Oh, yeah.
Or help keep the calls going to you, back to your office or.
Yep, yeah, it does explain it right on the bottom of it
Is there a
too.
way you could do that for them so that they could just do it on their phone or their laptop and just shoot it back to you? I mean, you might get it better that way.
Maybe, people might be leery about putting some of the information on there, but it's completely up to them. I mean, we have a new website.
So stellar.
We do have a new website and can you do fillable forms on there? I know we'd have to find out if a PDF can be filled in.
Yeah, I didn't think about the security piece. I was just thinking about you'd give more back.
Yeah, that's, you might
Oh, we would get more back.
open up Pandora's box.
And I know with fiscal year 22, 23 and going into 24, and I've mentioned this before, it's no secret that the sales analysis has been extremely difficult to do.
Is there an email that they can even take a quick snap of it when they fill it out and just email it back to you?
Yeah, we could do that too. We've had some come back as PDFs. Yeah. I mean, there are people out there that are even more tech savvy than we think we are, you know? So I mean, and everyone wants to do, you know, and we just send it in this way, but it is a good tool for, you know, I do a visit as well to the property when properties sell, and I'll bring those questionnaires with me. I still want to have one on file.
I was just thinking the little thing that you just said there, though, that I think if they knew how important it was, like you said, you have trouble doing your sales analysis.
Oh, yeah, there's been times, because my process is I have the deeds next to me and I have the sales questionnaire, and I'm thinking, oh, this sale, I don't know what happened, and I really need more information. And I flip through and there's no sales questionnaire, so it's like,
Right, so the sales questionnaire is not necessarily to just set the valuation for that specific property. It's more to help adjust the classification for that.
yes,
for that
it's
type
to
box.
determine, I mean, I can look at the deeds are great, but some of them are so vague. I mean, when I see a 2-page deed, I'm like not getting much out of that. But if it's a deed restriction, if it's a property where a substantial amount of furnishings and other things were included with that sale, and again, that's all private information, but it also helps us to realize that you had between $50,000 and $100,000 worth of furnishings. What it also does is it gives us an idea of whether or not they feel their sale was market value. I know I get a lot of, well, it was during COVID, so nothing was right. You know, everything was elevated. Oh, I know that, you know, I mean, so if we get a little bit more specific, and I'll look up all the sales and I'll look to see. What's also nice to know is, because we did take a few lines out of there, but you know, there's questions that say, was this is it intracorp, families, things like that we don't know about. The deed doesn't always, you know, it's not always, okay, your last name is this and you granted to your last name is this and they're the same, okay, we code that sale out. There are trusts, there are LLCs that are getting more and more confusing to know who are involved in these sales. Was it between two parties that didn't know one another? And that's the perfect scenario, but it's not that perfect anymore. And I'm not the only one. I mean, I had this conversation with Joe Barberi on the phone that these sales analysis periods are getting more and more difficult. I don't care how many sales you have, but the details of the sales themselves, I hate to keep referring back to COVID, but the market is different. And the amount that people are paying for their properties, there's some severe adjustments that are happening. And if there is one or two sales that we accidentally use in our analysis when we should have coded them out, that is going to affect hundreds of properties.
So like coding them out, you mean like it was sold to their son or their stepson.
Right,
Or it was a foreclosure or. it
Yeah,
was in-
especially those, yeah.
So when the true value of the sale was not reflective of what was in the deed. So some.
Right, I mean, our true goal at the end is to have what we call it, I mean, I call it a true sale. It was between two unrelated parties, regardless of the amount that was involved. But then again, you can take that another step further. And if for some reason we've got a whole bunch of sales in that category, but you've got one that's sticking out that for some reason is throwing off your analytical work, if you can turn to a sales questionnaire and find something in that questionnaire that maybe that one particular sale isn't the arm's length sale that you think it is, it's just going to make it, not that it should be a rule that our job should be easier, but it's gotten a lot more difficult to represent that true market value through the number of sales that we have. And yeah, any tool that we can use, I think those for assessors now in every city and town are immensely helpful. Absolutely, yeah.
And one other thing, I was speaking with the Berkshire County Board of Realtors about what's going up with Beechwood Lens Stock and
Yeah.
that collection, and they were wondering if they could speak to you about it.
Sure. Actually, I just referred to the couple appraisers too, because I didn't realize in their fee appraisals, they have to put down not only the taxes, but any other tax that's being there. And I've gotten a few requests for the reports that we used. And again, that came from Berkshire Lens Stock. So I'm referring them to them because they need to tell us whether we can release that information. We're the go-between on this. So I don't want to ruffle any feathers by saying, oh yes, I'll send you that spreadsheet immediately. They really should give me permission to send that out to people. If you're listening, Beechwood Lens Stock.
Yeah, I was.
Absolutely.
I was reading the stuff that went through the state legislature, and there was a couple weird things that jumped out. It basically specifically said that we had to do it every 6 months. So if we go to quarterly taxes, we have to address that. And also, I thought it was a little burdensome that we're supposed to remit any money on a weekly basis to.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
That seems a little burdensome weekly to the association.
I did find out that you can absolutely lien the property if that's not paid.
Yes.
Must show up on the MLCs then.
Yes. Yeah, we verified that. So again, it's a big deal.
I would ask town
You pay those.
about that list, if it's a public record, as far as you're concerned, no matter who provided it to you. So if people.
I mean, if people want to dig around and look at everyone's individual deeds to find out who, because it's coming from the deed. I mean, the way they started this was, here's all the deed references that literally went back to the 1900s. And I'm like, you can pay someone else to do that. You know, we're the go-between. You've got to provide us with a list. Parcel number. So the best thing that we thought of, and this was really Erica's suggestion, is send them your legal file, have them create a column. You know, we're not going to work off a Christmas list of abbreviated names for doctors and things like that. We need you to look at our legal file and use that. And it worked out perfectly. They added in a separate column. Here's the 500 charge for all of these. We added it up. Erica double checked it and we went forward with that. But now we're getting questions from, because people are aware of it, appraisers, realtors, you know, what is this? You know, what is it? And we have to include it in our appraisal. We have to disclose it, things like that. So there are, like we talked about, there's going to be things that pop up because this is the first time. We also did find out that it is split up into the two payments. So it will be the 250 and
Is it all on
250.
the first one?
Yep. Now I'm getting this firsthand from the collector. So yeah, we haven't printed our bills yet, but supposedly everything is set on our side. I haven't run the file yet for the taxes. Supposedly SoftWrite checked it and double checked it and they're able to apply the $500 to all the eligible accounts. We shall see. You'll sign, once everything is said and done and you guys sign the warrants, there will be a separate line item for that Beechwood Lens Stock, which I've already tested and I can put that in my spreadsheet. But I think we're good to go. But again, there's still going to be things that pop up. We talked about it. It's not as easy as, I mean, when I bring these questions up to other people that are involved with it here, it does seem pretty cut and dry.
But
Well,
I mean-
who knows?
But I mean, there's just so many
I
complications.
feel like there could be
Like interest.
things that come up.
What the interest that gets compounded on the late payments, is it gonna be prorated back to Lenstock Beechwood? Or is the town's gonna keep all of the interest and it's just going to get ugly?
Right,
And then what happens?
yeah, again, those are a lot of things
The
that
collection process. So the
they're
town-
still gonna have to deal
the
with.
town is gonna have to incur all the collection fees associated with follow-up on these and,
I think so.
yeah.
The auditors will have fun with it. At the end of the fiscal year, looking at it.
I mean, best case scenario, they easily pay them and then that's but
Well, yeah,
the ones that I think could be
only takes one.
is the new people that buy. Like what is the procedure for that? We've already had questions from attorney's office like, well, are you guys gonna prorate this for us?
Well, that's the other thing.
No. We've already told them that is not gonna happen. Just like a tax bill, we're not prorating that for someone either. Our assessment date is January 1st, our fiscal date is in play for the tax bills. Closing amounts are in the hands of the attorneys, and this is no different. That $500 is gonna have to be, it's gonna be confusing, but it's their confusion, not ours.
Yeah.
And that's all I have. Anybody? Okay.
Well, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank
Thank
you. Yeah, it's